the
It is
summary
what-
pages.
This is discussion, it isn't part of it yet. But I thought the numbers would help the discussion.
We just put it on the agenda.
Yeah, so.
I'm on my phone. Huh? We'll do a slide solution. Oh wait, we have to approve the agenda then, so I forgot to do it here.
Never mind.
Oh, yeah.
It's green.
We're ready to, well, are we ready to roll?
Yep, we are live.
All right, all you.
Bring this meeting to order at 6:11. Can you say it for the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
F is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
First, second,
Second motion.
second motion. Agenda has been approved.
Ask for vote.
Oh,
You're fine.
Do I have a vote? Or yes?
A.
Yes.
A no. And on to the budget session.
You gotta approve the minutes.
No. Minutes have been approved.
We have to approve them.
So you ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
The motion to approve minutes.
I move to approve the minutes as published in board books.
Second.
Second. Oh, Cheryl, what's that?
Cheryl, second.
There you go, Cheryl.
Jump on in there.
Cheryl, second.
Woo-hoo.
It's been approved.
Just ask for a vote to approve the motion
Their
to
vote to
accept.
approve the motion
Yeah.
for the.
Don't worry, we're all
Yeah,
learning.
We're all, it's all good, we're good. Yeah. Now you can give it to the pros.
All right, now we've got the budget session.
You want me to go?
Yes, would love it.
Okay.
Or do you want to go with the first question that we had?
I think I'm gonna move it around. I'm gonna go to questions before we go in because we received a question and we thought it would be a good opportunity to share about ESD services, how they allocate it and how it relates to ALC both this year and in the budget. And I think it's a learning thing. Just to give you a little history, ESDs, there was one in each county once upon a time, if you aren't aware of that. And I don't know if it was about when Measure 5 and everything came in and the reduction, they consolidated a lot of ESDs. And I think there's 13 ESDs now. They cut out 20 of them and they based them on size. That's where Lynn Benton Lane or Lane Benton LBL came in. They combined that and you have Northwest, the coast, you have the 3 metros, you have Umatilla does east, and you have the middle, central, and all that. That's how they came about. Then school districts, and I remember this it was the service for ESDs was for all districts. It was supposed to be services provided, and certain school districts, Salem, Kaiser being one, Portland being another, West Lynn being another, and North Clackamas another, 2 of them in our county that I was, they wanted their money instead of the service because they didn't want the ESD services. And so that's where the new law came in because they had this big hullabaloo down in Salem because they had their representatives. So that's where they came in with Tier 1 and Tier 2 services. Tier 1 services, every district gets that service. Now ESDs get their money based on ADMW that's in that area. So if you remember the formula, it goes 95.5 to districts, 4.5 to ESDs. Then they allocate that 4.5 to the ESDs based on their ADMW of their component school districts. That's why Northwest Regional wanted all this area. If you follow how it is, they became selfish and they consolidated. And so you have LBL has the 3 counties in here. And so the Tier 1 services, which Krista can go over, provide services to all the districts, not based on their ADMW. And they're kind of changing. You said they're doing something different there now, but Tier 2 is you get so many dollars based on your ADMW. And then Krista goes through what she needs and buys services. Based on that, they say how much it's going to cost, and we're using that mainly for special
Mhm.
ed. Well, our cost might be greater than that, then we have to pay for the difference out of the district funds. Before, when you had speech, before they did this, Alcy would have never had to pay for speech. It would have been part of the ESD. Behavior consultant would have been part of the ESD, but now we're paying for a port, and that's happened a number of years ago because of the big districts wanted their money because they said, we don't need that service. We have our own specialist and all that. So that's where it came about. So the question came about is, what is the special ed services that we have from the ESD, and where is it budgeted
Mhm.
in our fund? So I thought what the best thing would be to do is show the 23-24. If you look at the second sheet here, this is how they're allocating all the tier 1 and tier 2 to all the districts. What the top one, and this is all part of our maintenance of effort. And they include ESD plus what we pay in our maintenance effort. And I think I went over what maintenance of effort is where you have to maintain the same level of service for the students on IEPs as you did the previous year in aggregate or in by student amount. And so they add both the school district and the ESD dollars together, divide it by your number of IEPs, and then you have to meet it or you lose IDA dollars. And we were just going through the assurance this morning, filling out all the forms that are required. But the top part here is the tier 1s for all the districts. I thought that would be informative for you that I just received. And you'll see Alcy's on the far right. And the tier 2 is what Alcy could buy with their available dollars down there. And I'll have Krista go over that. And then the last sheet is a summary of that, just giving that to you how it is. Where are these budgeted in the general fund? 2150. 2 is speech.
Mhm.
2142 is behavior. And then we have 2190. So if you looked at your summary sheet that I handed out, and that would be, I should have been prepared more, but that would be
Page 11.
page 11. If you go there, you will see 2142 psychological testing. I think that's the same as
Your,
the psych.
yep, school psych.
2152 is your speech, and then 2160 is your other. Those are the ones that we're buying services from the ESD on, correct?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that is that 50,000 proposed $4,000.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's based on a proposal, like, so for example, if you look at this page on the back, we have to do special education reports where we report how many students in special education and what their disability code is. So if you look at the top under tier 1 services, you can see that we have a severe disability count of 1 student. And so based on the tier 1 dollars that we get for our ADMW, Alcy gets $1,100 from the EST for that amount of service.
For a year or for a month?
A year.
Year.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So they break it down very much. Yes, tier 1 is stuff that is already paid for by the state. We also get paid, the synergy is part of our tier 1 services. Now, when we drop into tier 2, things like the speech and language pathologist, that's gonna change this year. In the school psych, we used to be in a collaborative where there was 4 small schools like us, SIO, Sanium, Canyon, and Monroe. We would purchase like a school psych as a group, and then we would split. But what was happening is that SIO and Sanium Canyon were gonna pull out because it wasn't financially feasible for them. And so we, as Monroe and Alcy, couldn't afford those services. So they're actually dropping those services back into the tier 1, and we get so many hours allocated based on this SECC count. So based in what our special education department does is they work with the special education department at the ESD, which is an educational service district, and they say, this is how many evals we have. This is our estimated hours that we will need. And so the ESD, like Don said, they break them up and say, based on our money, you get this many hours of psych, or school psych services. So I believe this year it's something like 72 hours, but we're needing 145 hours. So we have to purchase out of the district's tier 2, those extra 72 hours. So it's actually kind of hard to really nail down what it costs, because it really is dependent on what cycle the kids are on and how many new kids we get in, and different things like that. But what happens, like Don said, there's these extra monies in tier 2, they break them up based on our ADMW. You can spend that money, anything over that tier 2 money, you have to pay out of pocket. So one of the things that we're gonna see possibly is that we may have to pay a little bit more out of tier 2, because they were using our ADMW that was inflated. So we were
So
actually
here we go
getting,
again.
yes, we were getting more money than Central Lynn and Monroe and SIO because of our inflated ADMW. So now that it's coming down, you're gonna maybe see a little bit more coming out of our own pockets because of how they break it up.
Because everything is always based on ADMW of the higher of the 2 year. You follow how it works.
So it makes me
And so we go down, we get less dollars.
Mhm.
an inflated projection on page 11 versus what's showing on this form, yes?
This, yeah, it ish, because we also, like, for example, our speech and language, prior to this year, the district had somebody, and so there was actually no money in our budget last year. Well, there was.
There was.
There was, but we are now gonna fully move over to this. So that inflated, so that number of 30, the speech language is 34,000.
Instead of 65.
Well, now remember, wait,
This
wait,
is-
this is tier 2 is still paid by the ESD.
And to a certain amount, and then we pay over whatever there is.
That's where this is the sheet here that we're paying on the far right. We didn't go over that,
Yeah.
the summary.
So you can see like our tier 2 funded. So this, that you guys see the column of tier 2 funded. We get approximately what, 76,000 for tier 2. Anything over 76,000, we pay out of pocket. So anything in tier 2 funded is what we have in that extra money. Anything over the district cost, that's over our, so for example, this is for last year though. So for example, you can see business manager services was $15,538. That was not included in our tier 2, that was above and beyond. So that's what we paid for business manager services for 1 month from the ESD until Dawn got off.
That was 1 month.
That was 1
That was
month.
1 month.
Yeah, the purpose of
We're
my
all
question
about saving you money.
was
Yeah.
to get at these things that I know that are changing, like.
Yeah.
Like in the past year, we budgeted for the speech pathologist, and now we're not going to have to, and I just wanted to compare the.
Well, we are going to have to, what I'm gonna tell you, it's really hard to nail it down because really things change over the summer. So for example, right now, because of the funding system, how like we're putting what we guesstimate will be where we're at based on the numbers we've gotten, but it could change up or down.
I was just
Mhm.
interested in comparing to our previous year's budget, like where we had budgeted for a full-time employee.
Mhm.
And like you mentioned that the payroll services are gonna be brought here.
Yeah, me.
Yeah, so we're bringing in the $44,000. So like next year, when we get this service, you guys see the $44,000 for payroll services. We're not paying the ESD to do that anymore. We're bringing it in-house because we do believe that we can be more cost efficient in doing it within
Can
our
I speak on
district.
that?
Please.
When I came here at the ESD, we performed payroll services for Colton when I was at the ESD. And I was also their business manager at the same time, and we felt it was a service and we charged them very little because they were a smaller district. Well, I knew how to do payroll from supervising it, and I think you have to know how to do it to supervise it. But when I came here, I was assuming the ESD for 44,000 was going to do the same thing that I was accustomed to Well, that is not the case. I had to set up all the positions. I have to set up all the deductions. I have to reconcile everything. And and I would send it to them after I put all the time cards and everything in. Roxy and I do all OEB and I did all the PERS and everything. And I knew it because I kept saying, well, isn't that part of the job? And they says, no, that's not, that's your responsibility. Well, I kept telling Krista, I could push the button for 44,000 because all they're doing is going down and checking my work.
Yeah.
I says, I will have Laura and Roxy check my work rather than pay 44,000 because I'm doing 95%
Yeah.
right now. And that's where I got a little irritated. She's heard me yelling. So is Laura in there.
So it's one of those things where, you know, like some of those costs are not costs that we can negotiate because they have CBAs.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. But we really, as we were going through the ESD, because we also do know that they have to run their administrative. So a lot of this cost has some administrative fees in there. But we are really deciding whether or not is it more financially feasible to bring it in-house.
I'll have to tell you one more thing.
Oh, God.
You got me going. We're quitting their service on June 30th. So we assume at July 1st. Well, our quarterlies for the third quarter or the second quarter are they're due the end of July,
Mhm.
but everything's due in June and they're running the payroll and they've done the quarterlies, but I check them. And I said, are you going to do the quarterlies? I figured they would, you know, to finish the second quarter. They says, no, our services are done on June 30th. I says, fine, I'll do them. It was just, to me, that's not customer service. So I've got a bad taste. She.
So that's kind of how we do. So I met with them 2 weeks ago. And so we have proposed service summaries for 24, 25, but it may change over the summer. But we are bringing most of our business back in-house because you can see that's
Just do it.
quite a bit. And so,
Thanks for that, guys.
yes.
Sorry,
No, don't be.
I had to vent.
No, actually, I just appreciate you sharing the knowledge with us and then also bringing the money back in.
Yeah.
So hopefully, Soren, that kind of answers your question. We did want to talk to you guys. So when you look in our budget, when we talk about ESC, what tier 1 versus tier 2 is.
Yeah. Going on the next, since when we budget, the proposed budget is based on what we know that's roughly concrete at that time. Well, since that meeting, we have received the award on the seismic upgrade grant, which is for 2 million some.
Like 2.4 million.
2 million for, which I needed to get into the budget because it's awarded. And I didn't want to have to do a supplemental budget next year because of the volume. So that triggered to do the 2.1, and that's why that's added in there. Also, since that meeting, we have received the final 22-23 payment for state school support. And that's about 400,000 more than what we thought. And I kind of figured it was coming, but you never want to assume anything with the state. So with that said, that increases and plus other savings with the grants and everything, we're going to have approximately 6.7 million in beginning cash to start the year, and I have 6 million in there. A thought in discussing with Krista is with the needs of the facility, both in the kitchen and every other thing, the windows, doors and everything. We budgeted 6 million. The additional money, a thought and a recommendation is to put a transfer in there and put that into the capital projects so the board and Krista can work on how to maintain this building and have it more efficient, because we were talking about food service. How do we bring that in-house rather than being dependent? It's still a board decision how to do that, but it's moving it to where it would be expended. And if the board didn't want to do it, it could always be transferred back. But one thing I said to Krista, if the budget only if the beginning cash only comes in at 6.5, that doesn't mean we would transfer 700. We would transfer the difference between 6 million and the 6.5, because you have budgeted beginning cash of 6 million or ending, and you want to maintain that because we know where we're headed and we want to save those dollars as the board plans with Krista on how to maintain programs. The last thing, I thought it was low at the time, but I kept it the same, is the contingency is only 120,000. Well, if something comes in and you have no clue, a student or whatever, rather than having to go through a supplemental budget, you still have to go to the board to move contingency. And to increase that up to at least 500,000. That doesn't mean you're spending. Contingency is only for those items that are unforeseen at the time of the adoption of the budget. And it has to go by board resolution to approve it. So everything is still with the board controlling it. It's just putting it into various areas that gives the board and Krista flexibility to meet the needs of the district. So the three things that I was telling Krista that, and I think you agreed, proposed is we need to put the grant in there. So you can start on that to move the additional dollars into the capital projects to deal with other needs, to be stewards for the facilities, and then increase the contingency to give you flexibility if something, a student comes in or whatever might need, and that still is under the board's oversight.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
I don't know what else to say.
Yeah,
I
what he
think
said.
Where's the seismic?
where I put it on here, if you go to the 400,
Okay.
you will see 2,700,000 and well, I've got it
It's on
kind of
page
split
10.
up
It's on page
because
10,
I moved 7. Let's start with the revenue. So the revenue is more important, and then I can go into the expenditures. Is that okay? If you go to page 10, you'll see the beginning cash. I increased that by 700,000. My proposal is in the 400s, capital projects, you increase the revenue for the seismic grant to 2,480,000.
Mhm.
That's the award. Then the money coming in from the general fund is 700,000. Okay, so there is increasing the beginning cash, increasing there. Now to go over to the appropriations,
What page are we
I will go in because everything's going to be in the, I know they're back and forth and I'm old. You go to page 11. I'm going to increase the transfer because I have to move it out of the general fund, the 700,000. I'm going to increase the appropriation for contingency by 380 to get it to 500. I'm going to lower the unappropriated ending because I have to get that contingency, move it there. It's not spending it, it's just moving it into, because you can't spend an unappropriated unless you go through a supplemental budget.
Okay. That was gonna, you just answered that question. So we can't spend any of the money in other services, 7,000.
Unless you go through a
Or a supplemental budget.
you have to go through a supplemental budget, okay? Because that's reserved for the next year, okay? Then going to the capital projects, I am increasing the 300s because you have services, architects, various engineers. Now think of the together, I'm adding the 700 and that all together. And then I'm putting in for the capital projects, the building, the 270. It might be vice versa, but that's I'm just doing it that way. Because you have to put it into two different categories. Okay? Did I explain that properly?
How long do you have to spend the new grant?
I think it's a couple years.
I think you got 3 years, but our hope is that we'll start doing architect things in the fall with next summer being,
Yeah.
that's our hope.
But I always like to budget the whole thing. It's still you still are limited over here by how many dollars you have, but I like to budget the whole thing because I don't want to say only $1 million when now you have $1.2 million and then I have to figure out how to get the other $200,000.
Yeah.
It just gives flexibility.
I think we get 2 years to spend it
Yeah.
completely, I believe.
But I think that gives the board, options on what to do with the kitchen, various things around here to think about long-term planning and the site, the upgrade on seismic. So that's just where I'm at with Krista and our proposal on the budget.
You guys have any questions?
Are you guys aware of how much it costs for, we're referring to when we talk about-
Talk about a little bit about
Okay.
it.
I was not at the last meeting, but I mean, since we were at the last board meeting, we discussed it, it's a very cost prohibitive system right now with Corvallis, so.
Well, and the scary part is with increasing costs.
Right.
At any point, they could say,
We don't want to service you.
we can't do it anymore and
Yeah.
keep it affordable. So then what do we do for our kids? We don't have any.
I think the
so,
flexibility to have the opportunity to get that kitchen moving, and we have someone here that's licensed to help do it. I mean, it's good at the bathrooms, probably could get that kitchen done fast. It's good for the board. I mean, I think we can't decide that yet, but being able to eat and serve our community food, our kids' food is important.
I'm sorry, what? Did we talk about the kitchens? Excess of $1. At some point, I know that was on the table.
That was,
But that was when we had the old belt. And then
Yeah.
everything went
I
way
think
above and
we ended
beyond.
up using pretty much all of it.
Yeah, I think the kitchen is the priority list at the bottom list. and
Yeah.
then the bond, yeah.
So ultimately by looking at this, the priority would be, we do need to start upgrading our facilities. Our windows are approximately the same age as the building.
This is
And,
wrong.
um, with the building, I'm working on a grant and the average age of our buildings is about 55 years of age. And so, in looking at this amount that's been saved, ultimately, we want to get to a point where our expenditures and our revenues are equal. And right now we're not. But we want to get to that point. So when we do save, ultimately our goal is to be, we use every single dollar that comes in. That's our goal. We're not there yet, but we do have this savings account. Though, that we have an opportunity that if we can start getting things kind of back in line, that we have this money to do some upgrades. Because we have this brand new HVAC, but we have windows that are single pane. So guess what's gonna go? So that's one of the things that if we have the money to do it now, that would be great to do. We do think that, we're applying for seismic again, because we actually have 2 more sections we could. And that windows could possibly be part of those seismic. But one of the things that, in assessing our facilities, we have to do something with them. Because our concern is with everything increasing with inflation. Yes, we got rid of the boiler, but we may have to now pay for electricity because all of our air is going that way.
You did mention though about the windows, is that the windows, that's one thing nice about windows is they don't have to be done all at the same time.
So that's why it's like we're trying to prioritize in phases. But with this money, we thought, by putting some money into the capital projects, and that allows us to, if we can find grants to pay for half the kitchen, say the kitchen costs 500,000 and we can find grants to pay for half and we only pay for 250, then we're not trying to scrounge around for the 250, we have it. And then we can look for windows and doors. And so that's, I think, an important piece for us in looking at other districts throughout the state, there is a district that's running a bond right now, and the board has pretty much said, if the bond fails, we will dissolve the school district because our buildings are so bad. So we don't want to get to that point. So yes, we have this money. I truly believe a priority does need to be put into making sure that our buildings are sustainable in how we do it, and that we're not paying for electricity, because I'd rather use that money to pay for curriculum. So I think, yes, it looks a lot up front, but I think it will sustain us a lot better in the end.
I had a question, just curiosity on this requirements report, where I just wondered, how do you come up with a number for substitute? I'm looking at elementary classified substitutes, the numbers are just, there was like a actual from 22-23 of 12,000, then nothing budgeted, now there's like $1,000. I'm like, how do you even come up with that? Right here now. Substitute number.
Well, here's what I do. I probably don't follow what the state wants, but substitutes are supposed to be charged where a teacher teaches or where classified works. That's pretty hard in high school and middle school when you have subject matter.
Mhm.
So I always charge them into a general 050 for the middle school and high school. If a teacher is mainly high school, I charge it mainly to the high school 050. So what I've done for budgeting, I looked at what we've spent so far this year by categories, and I'm pretty comfortable with the sub costs. And I know how many months I've done it, and I've carried it out for 10 months because that's usually the sub for during the year, and I increased it by 3. And so that's where I came up with the dollar for this year's budget. So I annualized it and then increased it by 3%. And hopefully somebody's not out all year. And so, but you have to have some kind of basis for the figure. So that's where the number came from.
So like substitutes, Soren, like this doesn't include special education substitutes. That comes from a whole different.
That's elementary.
Yeah, it comes from a different pot.
Yeah,
So-
I was just looking at this one, I was like, wow, the numbers are so
So, okay.
variable, like how do you even come up with?
Well, 122, well, that would be, well, we have very few classified that are elementary because all of them are special services.
Yep.
The only one I can think that is elementary is Joe, isn't he?
Like maybe
Part,
two,
and they're never gone. So they're always here. They even sub. So that's I've probably spent $500 and I increased it to 1,000. But if you look at the teacher, 131 and 132, those are additional time, not sub. The 121 is the subs for teachers at the elementary basis. So if you went to 121, you'd come down here, you would see substitute license, that's substitute teachers when they're gone.
Or middle high school, sorry.
Yeah, this is middle school.
Yep.
And people are here. I mean, we do have subs, but not like some districts have.
And
so-
remember, middle is 6, 7, 8. So you're looking at a smaller, like you're really only looking at a teacher, and then maybe like if we
Yeah.
added the periods together, maybe like you're looking at 2.5 teachers.
Yeah, if I went to 131, which may be, it should be a larger number. See, that's 17,000 right there compared to 13. Yes, hopefully I fall in, I've annualized it. And that's what I've done. And I looked at the last 2 years and annualized it. So hopefully it's good. If it's not,
I was just worried because I saw that in the past years, there was quite a bit of money spent.
Well, I also think too,
But
you
we
have to remember
changed
there was an aide in every single classroom, so.
And more
if-
staff too.
Yeah, and you had more staff.
One thing I do though is I budget PERS on all the subs. Cause I don't know if they're gonna have PERS or not. So hopefully they don't. So those dollars are available to cover. Cause that's 30% right there. PERS is 31% of your salary. So anybody that's a PERS member, you're paying another 31%
What is
To-
PERS?
The
public
Public
and
employee
retirement.
Retirement system.
That's on top of their salary.
Yeah, 31%, 6% pickup and then 26% on tier one. Then you pay
We had
FICA
some
7.
extenuating circumstances too, with long-term absences last year.
Well, and that's the thing too, when you talk about a long-term sub. So if a teacher has the leave, you not only pay the teacher their regular daily rate with the leave, but then you also do the sub. So you're almost paying a double.
And
You are.
FMLA like counts too, right? Like if you have,
Uh-huh.
like, you're still paying the teacher if they have.
If they have sick leave, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
plus their
family
benefits,
medical
their
leave.
medical and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so hopefully we don't. That's always nice.
You always- It's a good question. You just have your fingers crossed.
And it's really hard.
And that's
to
why you
budget
have
for that.
contingencies.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I think our substitute rate is low compared to most teachers because we have a 4-day school week, so a lot of teachers can get their
Right.
assignments and stuff in on Friday.
Mhm.
I mean, I would
Yeah.
imagine that's what I would
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
You know, get my hair done on Friday
Yeah.
instead of taking a day off and getting this done. Sorry. I mean, you know, it's random. You gotta look what people call in for. It's crazy.
Well, another good thing here with the subs, which I've noticed, you have like Chelsea and Joe sub.
Mhm.
So they are subbing. And so they're only getting a step up in their salary.
Right.
And then somebody may be subbing for them or not. Do you follow? So it's kind of, it's a smaller district mentality compared to what a big district they wouldn't do that.
Sure.
That's fine.
Oh, that's yours. Any other questions?
We don't want to be presumptuous on the resolution. If you have questions or if you would like us to meet again, please feel free to ask us.
Yeah, I put, not being presumptuous, but I put this in there with everything that I spoke about so that the resolution would cover everything from the beginning to where the new figures are.
It's not presumptuous. We did the ESD budget last week and they gave us the resolution the first night, so.
Oh, I've never done,
Presumptuous.
I never do it the first night. I think you always have to have time to look at it and then come back. So you're on the ESD budget committee. Good for you.
Is that what else we have?
Are there any
There's
more
another- yeah.
questions? We don't want anybody to feel rushed. If you have questions about how things work.
Or kind of desire to make an extra meeting.
I think it looked really good. It was very, I mean, self-explanatory. It was pretty easy to follow your budget. I mean, looking at it. Things that this is my first year on budget. So I don't really have any previous years to compare it to, but I'm glad I wasn't there. Previous years.
Kimberly's like, yes.
Can't imagine what those meetings sound like. I'm really glad I wasn't there either, quite honestly.
I can tell you it was never as clearly explained as it was this year.
Don is amazing. He's such a valuable asset to the district. I completely tell you.
I appreciate that comment.
No, every meeting has always been a pleasure with them. Even the very beginning, I remember it was like so new and it was like, wow, like this might actually I'm not a finance guy and actually understand most of what you're saying, which is great.
I'm not a speller. I made a
Here's
mistake.
an argument.
Well, I sell things for a living, so.
I'm giving her a red pen. I had a superintendent that always would go with a red pen, and then when she retired, I gave her a box of red pens. So I'm going to give them to Krista from now on.
Well, I think like coming from just a new board member, I feel like we really have a solid direction in the budget for the school and a really transparent footing of our financials that
Yeah.
I think the community in general the last couple of years was up in arms about. So I think on the road we just don't hear that from the community, and that is because of your transparency and Krista's hard work. I mean, kudos. We really believe you have our kids' best interests at heart and having.
That's
kids
what
in
they're
school,
about.
You know, like it just means something
Yeah.
to have a plan going forward.
Well, never has anybody talked about projection, forward projection. Been unheard
No.
of. So the transparency.
I couldn't survive without projecting. No, I could not survive.
So the
I need to
transparency
know.
on top of knowing that we're looking at the future, we're paying attention to what's happening. You guys are on the ball with major changes and problems in the forecast, so it's reassuring.
I mean, running for the school board last year, and I'm sure Jamie heard as well, like people were saying, why are you even running? The school's not gonna exist in a year. You know, I mean, looking at this year so far as it's almost completed, I mean, it's just nice to have security that
Mhm.
we're hopefully, barring any government intervention, gonna have a school, right, going forward for another
You will.
decade or two, right?
You will, you plan.
Right.
And you
So-
make changes.
But Don, without you, I don't know that, I mean, I know Krista would have figured it out, but really. you
I
know,
appreciate
It's comfortable as a board member to talk to people in the community about the forward progress of the
And
school.
FYI, you're not going anywhere.
Right. I mean, we'll give you a rate. No.
Not even on vacation anymore.
No.
And what I'm looking forward to also is just being able to compare, because it's difficult to compare some of these past numbers with like what we're doing and what we're budgeting for in the future. And I'm looking forward to being able to look at these numbers and say, this is the same thing that I'm comparing to. Because
Right.
now I'm like, this is a way different number, but it's not necessarily the same thing.
Well, I have to do the hearing, notice for the paper, and you've already questioned the FTE that was in last year. I know the FTE this year. Well, I have to put the FTE from 2 years ago, and I'm going, where do I get that number? Because I will go through and figure out, it's just like, I just want to get away from all those things,
Yeah.
you know, so I know my stuff. And Laura and Bren and Roxy and Krista, we just kind of work together. We know it.
You're almost there.
And it's, we talk a lot about the ADMW, and I think we're coming off that hill, so you're gonna see numbers go down to really where they should be. And it's, that's a lot of conversations of why was it so high? And now I think you're gonna see in the next couple of years where you'll all be able to actually track a history versus going, well, we had a drop by $40,000, but we had this happening. And so I think that projection helps as well.
Totally. I guess the next step is if you want to have another meeting, you can, or 2, you can approve this resolution and we can publish the hearing notice both on our web and in the paper. And then at the June 20th meeting, they will have the hearing and then approve. The steps are if the patrons can come and say their piece, and then the board can make a modification of a limit or whatever, adopt the budget, because the deadline in my life is taking the budget and the ED 50, which is the levy notice, to the assessor and handed it to him rather than trusting any mail, because that's both your permanent rate and your levy for your debt. That's where we get gray hair if they don't get that. Yeah, anybody.
Cause you all,
Yeah,
I have a question about the budget approval resolution. The general fund is a 5.0811 per thousand.
that's per thousand. That's permanent rate.
An assessed value for property taxes. is that
Yeah,
correct?
based on the measure 5, it can only go up so much. You have your market value and you have your assessed value. If you looked on your statements, it can only be taxed on the assessed value.
Okay, but what was it last year?
It's always 5.0, it's always 5.0811. When they changed through measure 5 or whatever that measure was, because before school districts used to increase 6% every year. Remember those days? Or some districts like North Clackamas didn't have a levy. You had a tax base. And it automatically increased 6% each year. And school districts like North Clackamas always had to go out every year to beg. And so some districts were getting way up here, like Lake Oswego and North Clackamas, who was becoming the poor versus the rich in Clackamas County. And so then legislation passed Measure 47, and that's when the permanent rate, that's when the formula came in.
So
Yeah.
this does not include the up
Bond.
to
That
1%
includes the bond or
of
not?
the bond.
This does not include the bond.
Right, but that was my question, is this the same amount or is it higher or lower than
No.
last year or 1,000?
Yeah, the bond.
Yeah.
But this
Yeah, the
never
bond's
changes.
at like $1.01. But that's taxed on all of, it's not a, there's excluded and included, because within your levy, you add both the county, you add the ESD, you add the college, and you add the school district, and they cannot exceed a certain amount. And I can't remember what that is. It's limited. And so they prorate it. So, but this is your permanent rate that was determined way back.
But
Yeah,
then
that's
the
our pro-
bonds on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And-
bonds on top of it.
So what did you project, this year not, they're not taking out this year because of what happened? I mean, this year they are, they didn't this,
They did last year.
wait a minute. Okay, so our bond that LC put in for.
Can I have the book? Can I have the book real quick?
They
Okay,
took
that
out
was
too
it.
much, or
They did
charged
take out,
too much.
they did
Yeah,
take out too much. Back in.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
And then they were there last year.
It'll go now, it'll come back up to the norm.
What is that? It's supposed to be like 3.
Where's the
It's
debt
either a
service?
dollar or one or 99 cents.
99
and
cents,
stuff.
yeah, it all-
It's right on page
Yeah.
102. Go to page 102.
Yeah, that's the answer to the book.
Then my other question is though, is when people's property taxes have gone up, we're going to collect more because of that percentage?
It's,
It'll always be 3.
it only
Otherwise,
go,
$5 per
No,
dollar
that's
per-
different.
per
I'm
thousand.
talking about the bond.
The bond.
okay,
Oh.
Yeah.
the assessed value goes up
So.
by
no.
3%. It will.
Okay, okay, I'm not talking the assessed value. I'm talking if somebody built a home and they used to have their property tax assessed value was one number. They built a home and their assessed value tripled or doubled. So then you're collecting that much more.
We're not collecting anymore.
You have to, because if it's.
No,
based off
because
your
it takes
1,000
all the assessed values and divides it in. If you look on here, the 101, we're submitting
Where?
on
Page
102.
page 102. On page 102 with the blue,
Yeah,
the bond levy is going to be 101 that we're submitting to the tax assessor.
mhm.
And we're not going to collect because people get discounts. So I'm projecting that we're going to be collecting about $98,000. They are going to do assessed value of 3%. So you're probably going to have a levy of 0.94. We aren't going to collect any more dollars. They take all the assessed values and divide that into the 101 to come up with a rate.
So if property taxes in total for this year, or for when they do the calculations, have increased because of properties, then shouldn't that rate go down because they're gonna collect more on a per thousand assessed value?
Well, the rate will be down if there's more assessed value, but I'm projecting a 3% increase.
Because they're allowed to increase by 3% every.
Yeah,
school
I
year.
just used a 3%.
Okay.
If I used a 4% or 5, then I could show the rate would be less than that, but I guess I'm being conservative here. Hopefully the rate is less. Everything's,
Okay. This is
everything's
just-
dependent on the total assessed value in your district, but I have what your new construction is in the Alsea School District, and it's not that much in here, and I can bring that to the board, what the, for the excise tax, construction excise. But it's not that much. You're correct. If the assessed value goes
Assessed
up,
value in the Alsea School District goes from, in total, I mean, just hypothetically, from 100,000 for everybody's sum together and it goes to 150, then they're gonna collect less.
I think
from
what she's trying to
everybody.
ask is the bond was approved as a dollar amount, right? Not a percentage on the assessed value. The bond when it initially was voted was for a specific dollar amount
It couldn't exceed
and a dollar
a
amount.
dollar.
So like if someone built a
per
$2 million house down the road
1,000,
next year and they had an assessed value of $1.5 million and we were now taking that out of theirs, does that increase what we're collecting or does the amount stay the same and everyone else's drops a little bit?
everybody else's drops.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Air-
the same. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
follow you. I was trying to-
No, everybody else's
Yeah.
drops.
Right.
It's just like, I put, it's, you got 101 there, whatever the assessed value is
Right.
is
Your-
going,
the bond is just gonna pay for itself over the assessed value over the number of
Right.
years.
Okay. 'Cause I
So
know
we want
had a
rich
house-
people to move in and build houses.
Yes.
Properties where the taxes went up
Right,
Yeah.
quite a bit.
mine might too at the end of this year, so.
So they can only collect so much.
To
so
be honest,
the
I'm gonna
numbers
be
may
honest,
change.
like, the one tax I don't mind paying is for schools, like, I'm just different. I mean, I hate driving down our crappy road sometimes, paying the tax for that, but I never mind paying to a school.
Right.
Our children
It
are
was
our
cause I have
future.
10 kids, that's
Right.
why.
But it's our children are our future.
Explain
We
to
have
me
to
this
take care of
tax collect from Lane County.
because you're a joint district.
10 kids.
Yeah,
So a certain portion comes out of
So in
them.
parentheses, is that a positive number or a negative number?
No, I collect the dollars from
Okay.
there. And what they,
I'm like,
no, they subtract, the way they do it, they subtract the dollars from the bond because they're gonna collect it from that and then divide it by your assessed value.
okay.
They don't take this, yeah,
sure did. Why is it a negative number?
no, we get both.
Any other questions?
I just feel this peace. It's been a tough day.
Can we
Can I have a motion?
move to vote?
Go for it.
I make a motion to approve the 24-25 budget approval resolution
That's right.
as written, yes.
A second.
Is it a roll call vote or is it just? All in
All in
favor?
favor?
I,
All opposed? Alright. Budget has been approved.
you did a great job.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Kim, for leading them.
Throw
Yep.
this back.
7:04.
Thank you. You can
just
keep
sign
it if
all
you
of
want.
it.
I know.
In my construction project. This
We have
is enough
to,
for me.
Laura, there's a error on this, so could you fix that? And then,
Before she
Sorry, I
signs it.
missed the first meeting. Late day
You were in
work.
surgery that day.
I know, it's so long.
Life happens.
Yes.
It does.
I could proofread something.
Yeah,
100
hopefully.
times
the
and
one
not
that
see
just-
it.
should we
just
sign
have a
it
copy
now?
of
Or do we
the-
sign it?
My
We
16
send
month
this
old
to
had like
the-
103 for 2 days.
This gets signed to the next.
What needs to get fixed?
This right
It
here,
all
can
came
you
from
do
the
that?
school, you know,
There's
the
a
kids brought it home.
misprint,
So
misspelling.
and I got it. And I did
I
it.
need, so
For
Everyone-
the
Yeah, can you
Okay,
have,
It's on my other computer. I will race.
yeah, so she can sign it. Don't run away.
I've
Don't
tried
run away.
everything.
Don't
I've
run
tried
away.
everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm doing every kind of crazy, I'm like, the whole sort of all these homeopathics, I'm doing it
No.
all.
I guess Nathan, if you're
But isn't
online,
that the
we can
budget
go
hearing?
ahead and,
No, that's a different one.
and the,
The completely different one. This is the first one.
Yes, she's.